Hi, I'm Oscar.
Hi, I'm Erwin.
Erwin, we're going to talk about infrastructure as code and mainly Bicep.
Yes, that's correct. I want to talk about the specific Bicep part, Bicep modules, because I like modules because they make files more readable as they can become smaller and also allows for reusability of certain parts of code.
Okay, so modules, explain modules. What is a module within Bicep?
A module is basically a Bicep file itself, which is called from another Bicep file.
So the moment in one Bicep file you call another one, you don't refer it as resource, but you refer it as module, and that thing has its own params and might do one thing, might do 10 things.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we first show that? Because just to grab our minds around that.
Definitely. I created a small demo that has a main.bicep. It creates a service plan for an app service, and then there's an API.bicep, which is the actual module, which you can also recognize at the because
keyword,
of the module keyword.
So the first keyword is resource. That means we're referring to an API of ARM. Basically, it's like this is going to be an Azure service plan, and the other one is referring to another Bicep file.
Yes.
Okay.
And that Bicep file is next to it, and inside that one we have multiple resources. So it creates a staging slot next to the normal slot, and also sets up some default settings.
So like we use methods in code and maybe other libraries and stuff, this is the way to stack, reuse, and keep the actual intention clear in your main file.
Yes.
Okay.
So now the problem I want to discuss today a bit is this works great if you have the file locally.
Yeah.
But at Virtual Vault we have a lot of different repositories, and we wanted to reuse the same API.bicep in different repositories.
So for every API, every app service you have, it has its own repository, but you want to reuse part of that creation because you're doing the same things all over again. And if you're in separate repositories, how would you get the Bicep file there? There are a few options, I guess, because you can also, I don't know, make another build and an artifact and push it in there. Duplicate your API.bicep in every repo. But you have a specific other option, right?
Yeah, because duplication of the API.bicep goes a bit against the reusability of it, because then you're still copy-pasting it all over the place. So what the Bicep team came up with is something called Bicep Private Registry, which is under the hood an Azure Container Registry.
So Azure Container Registry, what we normally use to host Docker images, so we can deploy them on Kubernetes or something.
Yeah.
So that's just completely compatible with hosting Bicep files.
Yeah, not actually Bicep files, but ARM JSON templates. So
ARM JSON templates. Okay.
There's a command you can publish to it. In the background, it compiles it to a JSON and pushes that in the Bicep registry.
So, yeah, like a package repository we use for NuGet or npm. We can reuse the container registry to put ARM in. That's interesting. So that means that you're pushing your Bicep file will first throw to ARM and then push the ARM there.
Yeah.
Also some advantages, because then you pull your compile step up front. That means that on runtime or execution you won't get errors that you could have prevented.
Yeah, no, definitely. So you get the ARM back. And what you, let's show that. I already created a Bicep registry here. So there are a couple of things you need. You need the server, basically, and
it's a unique URL, basically.
And every Bicep file you send to it is called repository in here, and it has a tag. So you have to figure out a good tag for it. But then in the end, you have the artifact reference. If you copy that link over.
Okay. And going back, because like here you have you had the API, you already pushed one, a V1 of this same file, I guess. How does the command look like to push it there? Are you doing that with special tooling, or are you reusing AZ for that?
No, it's inside Bicep command line. So you have the AZ Bicep publish. So we can grab it here.
Okay, so from here you target the actual container registry you want.
Yeah.
If you have permissions to right there, it pushes to the container registry with the tag, and it does with the publish, it does the translation to the JSON file, the ARM JSON file, and
it does it for you.
Okay, awesome.
So it just accepts a Bicep file as a parameter.
So you end up in the state you are now, where you have an API v1 somewhere in a container registry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the part is like, now it points to a local file, but in the end we want to point it to the Bicep registry file.
Yeah.
What we need to do is start with BR.
So that recognizes it needs
it's
to
a Bicep registry.
not look locally anymore?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we can paste in the artifact reference we just copied over. And
that's
then
the complete URL, the unique identifier for
and
this
then
version.
it automatically knows, like, you can restore it, but if you see, oh, I have to save it first, else it doesn't
That helps.
pick it up. Then it should say succeeded.
Okay.
That means it has permissions to pull it out of the container registry and use it here. And what you can also see to make sure it's the correct file, if you use F12, you see the entire
But then
JSON
you see the
file
the ARM
that is
part.
actually in it. So if we, for example, just for fun, do a build of the API.bicep.
Now we can compare what it would look like.
Yeah.
Because no one knows how to read these JSONs, of course.
No, and if you then put them next to each other, then they should be the exact same file.
Okay, cool.
Only thing is here it's color coded, other side not.
Yeah, I understand. But you have solved in that. That means that with that URL, your tooling also recognizes that there's an active connection there. Does it help you filling in the parameters, or is it just because you know what they should be? Do you have auto-completion on these?
Yes, because as soon as it knows what it is, so let's say we remove everything and it has a link, it is as smart as any other thing and gives you all the required properties already.
Awesome. So it's because if you would share it centrally and you lose all that power of actually, like, this is required, you need that parameter, it would be a bit difficult to you would see on when you kick off your pipeline if it actually works. But this is awesome, and the connection that we have here is all based on your current AZ login, on your account set in your Azure CLI, right?
Yes, by default it uses Azure CLI to authenticate against it. So the user I'm logged in with Azure CLI has permissions to pull from this container registry.
The same as container registry, of course. So you could also do that with API key, I guess, and stuff like that.
Let me pull. But let's say you say, okay, I don't want to use Azure CLI, I want to use different options. They made it possible for you through a Bicep configuration file. So what you can do is Ctrl-Shift-P and then choose option Bicep, create Bicep configuration file. Well, choose a location, that's fine. This is what you get out of the box.
Yeah.
But there are some options next to the analyzers. It's all code completion stuff. What we need is cloud. Inside cloud, there's a current profile. Probably always Azure Cloud, but let's see the options. You have China Cloud, Azure US Government.
Of course.
And what you then have is credential precedence, which is basically a list of all the different things they support.
Okay, so all the other identity providers you can also use.
What you put in here is what they use. So if we say we only want Visual Studio credentials, then it makes no sense in this case because we don't have it. But as soon as we try to restore it, we get failed because it cannot find them.
But I'm super, like, for me this workflow with Azure CLI is mostly default, but it's awesome to see that all these things are possible.
But you can, for example, say use environment credentials for or managed identity for a build pipeline, and then fall back to Azure CLI if there is nothing set up for that.
Awesome. Okay, so I love that we can now reuse but especially love that we are actually having the code completion, and the F12 was for me really special. It's like, what am I looking at? Because in the container registry, we cannot look at the file itself. So it's hard to, like, of course we have a version, but it's harder to know what you're looking at. What would be next here?
Well, the next issue we run against while implementing this was that we have different environments.
Yeah.
And each environment, at least, and we only have one Bicep registry.
Yeah.
So the problem we were having is, how do you handle permissions on other environments?
Otherwise, you need to have in the same context, because you're doing IAC on dev, test, acceptance. I don't know how many environments of 5 rings in production. If there are separate subscriptions, you have a bit of an identity problem there. That's interesting, but I feel that's next talk, right?
Yeah, we found a solution for that. Let's clear this first. That it doesn't break anything for us.
Okay, so we're going to fall back now to the Azure CLI.
Yeah. So what we had is we decided my local account is pointing towards Azure, like for example the dev tenant.
So your container registry is in your development subscription on Azure.
No, let me rephrase it. We put the container registry in a different tenant than what my Azure CLI is normally in. So what you can do is use Azure Lighthouse. It's basically, that is a system that's created to define a set of permissions for on a tenant and apply those permissions to resources on another tenant.
Okay, so you can span over tenants and subscriptions to use the same account there. Because I can imagine multiple scenarios. It's what you say, like dev, test, production, and we don't want to publish the same tag of everything to 4 different container registries. We want to do that once, but also in a solution where some team, maybe an infrastructure team, gives you templates and say, this is the container registry. I don't care what kind of environment you are, but it's here, you have access to it. And one of the options is, of course, to share that API key everywhere of that container registry to connect like that. But we want the identity, right?
Yeah.
So how would you do that?
So let's go inside the portal. So what I have here is 2 different accounts set up. This one is the tenant with the resource, with the actual registry in it.
With the container registry, yeah.
And this is a tenant with nothing in it, but except a user that wants to pull data.
So the user's here that wants to use it. So okay, and the other one has a registry. So then you have indeed that scenario where you want to log in one and give trust to the registry anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So from this place we can go to Azure Lighthouse because it's fully Bicep possible. In the end it generates an ARM file, but it might be easier to see from here.
Yeah, let's not get too complex and start typing a Bicep file to set this up.
No, so here you have create ARM template.
Yeah.
So you can give it a name. We call it Beta Talks Demo. You can choose the scope. Is it just for a resource group, for subscription? So let's keep it easy for now and give it everything. And then you say which principal IDs basically do you want to give permission. So I created the group, Bicep registry readers. My account is inside that.
This is in the tenant where your user is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I say I want to have a CR pool permissions. And then permanently eligible is basically just-in-time access. Yeah. But we want to always be able to do this. This just you can add multiple authorizations, different roles, etc. You can add it, and then in the end, it generates a big JSON template for you. Which has all this information, and what it creates is a registration definition, and a registration assignment. So the definition contains the principal ID information I just supplied, and the registration assignment makes it active on that resource. So what we can do is just we can download this file, copy this file, whatever we want, and then inside the other tenant, we have to execute the file. So at least we have to run the template.
You're basically defining the access from the tenant that you can actually define the access because you're there. It creates a file, and that file you run in the other environment. And by doing that, it knows how to call back, and you just join these two.
So we are here in the custom deployment for create custom template, and I think there is a load file. So what was it?
Template 1, I think, in your downloads, last one.
Template 1. You see it here completely, and then if we save, we can alter informations again, maybe change subscription if we need it, or at least point out which subscriptions the permissions need to be on, and then review create.
So you would also, like, let's say you have even a dedicated subscription where these kinds of resources are. You create the template there, and then on all the other subscriptions, then when you want to reuse that, you just start adding those things. Okay, awesome. That means that I'm still thinking about this. So we create it on where the user is, and we roll it out on where the registry is.
Yes.
Is this the same approach you would use to do actual containers? Because I've never set it up that way, but if you use Azure Container Registry for your Docker images, where we're used to using it for, this is also the way then, right? Because it's a pull, right?
Yeah, if you want to have one central place across different tenants where you store it, this would be a nice solution.
Okay, and that works there, and it also works here. That's awesome. Yeah. So it deploys this, and then do we need to do more, or was this?
Yeah. No. So it's awesome UI.
Yeah, that's. We used to have HTML Blink, remember?
Let's click away. There is what I find a bit downside, or at least I didn't find it, is there's no clear way to see that the resources or that those roles actually apply. Normally, if you do RBAC roles, you don't really see it. There is a visual way of seeing it. Managed services.
Managed services.
If you check the help, there are two options, assignment and definition. So if we check the definition, I only have one right now, so I can list them all for ease of use. Let's make it a bit bigger.
Okay.
Then you can see here the principal ID I used, Bicep registry readers, and role definition ID. If you check this one out, is the ACR pool GUID. And besides that, there's also the assignment. And that one has an. This one has an ID. 3263, and the assignment basically says, we applied. We applied that. This ID.
So awesome. So we now set up so we can deploy this module, or we publish this module to the container registry. We add a tag to it to version it. We created a template in JSON. I'm just rehearsing here. Template to define which roles can actually access that registry, and then in the tenant where the registry is, we run that, and you have those managed services. You can check your assignments there. But basically, now in every environment, we can reuse the module of that registry. So we could also have, like, I don't know, maybe in your company we have some main registry with some templates in there for certain resources. You have your own teams shared, and you can mix and match here. You can create any combination you want.
Yeah, definitely.
So we have reuse, we have versioning. Looks awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think this was it for today. I think that's more than enough to process. Go slowly through the screens to try to rebuild it yourself. I cannot do it at the top of mind, but I'm gonna watch this back to properly try to remember everything he did, because someone will ask me how to do this at some point. Thank you very much for this information. I think this is this is Bicep from the real world. This is not demoware. Thanks for your knowledge, Erwin.
Yeah, you're welcome.
See you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.